The shoreline of the Gerasenes was no ordinary place. It was a borderland where Jewish and Gentile worlds collided, where fishermen labored at dawn, and where travelers carried their fears into the quiet morning air. On this day, the sea lay strangely calm, as if holding its breath for what heaven was about to reveal. People were scattered along the shore, tired farmers, curious children, and herdsmen watching over thousands of pigs grazing on a distant hill. No one expected anything unusual, yet an overwhelming tension rested in the air, as though creation itself sensed an approaching confrontation. As Jesus stepped out of the boat, eyes turned toward him, not knowing their lives were about to witness the impossible. The dusty wind carried whispers of old stories of healers, prophets, and power beyond human grasp. But what they were about to see would shake every belief they held. From the caves above the shoreline came a figure the villagers had grown to fear. He was not simply troubled, he was tormented. His cries echoed across the rocks, breaking the silence of every night and haunting the memories of everyone who heard them. Chains meant to restrain him dangled uselessly from his arms, snapped as though they were threads. His body carried scars, not only from stones he struck against himself but from years of spiritual captivity. People avoided his path, terrified of the unpredictable force within him. Yet beneath the wildness, there hid a soul desperate for freedom, a man trapped inside a prison no human hands could unlock. When he saw Jesus approach, something deeper than madness pulled him forward. He ran not with hostility, but with a desperate hope he himself could not understand. Darkness had met many victims, but now it was about to meet its conqueror. The moment the possessed man fell before Jesus, the atmosphere changed. It was as though the wind froze, the waves stilled, and every unseen force paused in recognition. The man's voice trembled with agony, yet layered beneath it was another voice, cold, angry, ancient. "What have you to do with us, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" it cried. The villagers had never heard such authority mixed with terror. The demons inside him recognized instantly what humans often still struggle to grasp. They were standing before the one who commands all realms. The man's body shook violently as the forces within him confronted a power they could not resist. Yet Jesus did not flinch. He spoke with calm authority, not to destroy the man, but to reclaim him. This encounter was not about wrath, it was about liberation. Heaven had come face to face with torment, and torment knew its time was over. When the struggle ended, the change was undeniable. The man who once roamed like a shadow of death now sat at Jesus' feet, calm, clothed, and restored to his right mind. But instead of celebrating, fear gripped the witnesses. They could not deny the miracle. They could only fear the one who accomplished it. The herdsmen fled, trembling, spreading the news through every corner of the region. People rushed to see what had happened, only to be confronted by the impossible. A man transformed and a herd of pigs gone forever. Questions swirled: why him? Why now? Why pigs? And most unsettling of all, what kind of authority was Jesus truly carrying? The once violent man was now whole, but the community wrestled with a new kind of disruption, the realization that divine power had stepped into their ordinary world, demanding a response they were not prepared to give. In ancient Jewish belief, demons were more than invisible threats. They were remnants of rebellion, spirits separated from God's light, roaming the earth in search of vulnerable lives to torment. People saw them as forces that exploited fear, sickness, and emotional weakness. To the Jewish mind, demons weren't abstract ideas, they were real, malicious entities constantly warring against human peace. They were believed to dwell in deserts, graveyards, and abandoned places, feeding on despair and isolation. This understanding shaped how communities interpreted suffering. When medicine failed and behavior became unexplainable, spiritual oppression was feared. In this worldview, Jesus' encounter with the demoniac wasn't merely extraordinary, it was a direct confrontation with the darkest forces known to their tradition. When the demons cried out in terror before Jesus, every Jew witnessing the moment understood instantly. A cosmic hierarchy had just been exposed, and Jesus stood unmistakably at the top. The region where Jesus performed this miracle was saturated with Greco-Roman influence, and with it came a swirl of superstitions. People believed spirits wandered through forests, rivers, mountains, and even animals. Many thought certain creatures like snakes, pigs, or birds could serve as vessels for supernatural forces. Local healers used charms, inscriptions, and rituals to ward off evil spirits, hoping to maintain peace in a world they felt powerless to control. This blend of folklore and religious fear shaped how the crowd understood what they saw that day. The sudden outcry from the demons, the terrifying conversation with Jesus, and the violent rush of pigs into the sea all aligned with their deepest fears about the unseen world. But unlike the superstitions that demanded rituals and sacrifices, Jesus needed no incantation. His authority alone shattered everything they thought they knew about spiritual power. When the demons inside the man called themselves legion, the word carried chilling weight. A Roman legion consisted of thousands of soldiers, disciplined, destructive, relentless. Hearing that name from a suffering man suggested overwhelming spiritual occupation, the kind that crushed identity and erased personal will. The word unclean added another layer, signaling impurity not just physically, but spiritually, something that separated a person from both community and God. These terms weren't chosen casually, they revealed the scale of the torment and the depth of the demonic grip. Each word painted a picture of a soul besieged, a life invaded by forces determined to destroy. But these words also highlighted something greater, the immeasurable contrast between the power of darkness and the authority of Jesus. Even a legion could only tremble when standing before him. Their vocabulary exposed their strength, but their fear to ancient communities. Demons represented more than spiritual entities, they symbolized every chaotic force that tore life apart. They embodied fear, sickness, brokenness, and the unseen battles that families whispered about but rarely understood. When someone suffered uncontrollable behavior or crippling torment, people saw these spirits as the invisible hands behind the pain. Demons explained why life could collapse without warning, why innocence could be shattered, and why peace could vanish overnight. But the gospel story transformed this fear-driven worldview. In the presence of Jesus, demons no longer symbolized unstoppable destruction, they revealed their own helplessness. Their loud pleas, their panic, and their desperate negotiation exposed them as defeated forces clinging to temporary power. For the crowd watching, this moment redefined spiritual reality. Demons existed, but they were not ultimate. The miracle showed that no matter how terrifying darkness appears, it cannot stand unchallenged before divine authority. The story, the demons and the pigs, appears in all three synoptic gospels, yet each writer shapes it with a unique lens. Mark gives the most vivid account, capturing raw emotion, violent detail, and the overwhelming torment of the possessed man. Luke, the physician, highlights the man's psychological suffering and complete restoration, emphasizing Jesus' compassion. Matthew, however, introduces a surprising twist. He speaks of two demon-possessed men rather than one, suggesting the scale of spiritual oppression in the region may have been even greater. These variations don't contradict the event. They reveal different angles of the same miracle, much like three witnesses describing one breathtaking moment from different viewpoints. Together, these accounts pull the reader deeper into the scene, showing not just what happened, but what it meant. The consistency of Jesus' authority across all three narratives underscores one truth: every gospel agrees he reigns over darkness. Early manuscripts of the Gospels contain small variations that offer valuable insight into how ancient scribes understood this dramatic event. Some manuscripts emphasize Jesus' authority more strongly, while others add detail about the man's condition, suggesting early Christian communities were grappling with the spiritual weight of this story. These variations don't alter the core narrative. Instead, they reveal how deeply the event resonated with believers who copied these texts by hand. They handled every word carefully, aware that this story portrayed a spiritual battle unlike any other. The presence of variants shows the importance placed on accuracy and preservation, even as tiny clarifications or expansions emerged across generations. These differences help modern readers appreciate the depth of ancient storytelling and remind us that this miracle was not just a memory, it became a foundational testimony, copied, studied, and cherished by early Christians who knew its power. In examining the Gospels, we see that each writer chooses a distinct emphasis, shaping how the miracle speaks to the reader. Mark centers on the man's transformation, making the healing itself the heart of the story. His focus is personal, intimate, human. Luke emphasizes the exorcism, showcasing Jesus as the divine healer confronting spiritual oppression head-on. His narrative reveals the cosmic tension between the kingdom of God and the forces that prey on human vulnerability. Matthew, meanwhile, highlights the confrontation as part of a larger cosmic story, a clash between divine authority and dark spiritual rebellion. This isn't just a healing or an exorcism, It is a revelation of how heaven responds to the chaos that plagues human lives. Together, these perspectives create a multi-layered narrative tapestry that elevates the event from a simple miracle to a cosmic declaration. Darkness has limits, but Jesus has none. The variations between the gospel accounts reveal something profound about the early Christian understanding of Jesus. They show that his followers didn't flatten his actions into simple stories. They preserved them through diverse voices, each capturing truths that mattered deeply to their communities. Some saw a healer restoring dignity, others saw a warrior confronting ancient spiritual powers. Still others saw a cosmic king unveiling the nature of his authority. These differences show the richness of the miracle, not contradictions. They demonstrate that Jesus' power touched every dimension of life: physical, emotional, spiritual, and cosmic. The possessed man wasn't just freed, a message was delivered to the universe. No realm lies outside his command. The gospel variations invite modern readers to see the story from every angle, realizing that one miracle can echo through generations, cultures, and hearts in ways no single telling can capture alone. In Jewish culture, pigs were more than unclean animals. They symbolized everything spiritually impure, everything that separated a person from God's holiness. To the Jewish mind, pigs represented the boundaries between righteousness and defilement, a line no faithful believer dared to cross. Eating them was forbidden, touching them was avoided, and raising them was viewed with suspicion. So when demons begged Jesus for permission to enter pigs, the symbolism was striking: impurity choosing impurity. The unclean spirit sought refuge in the very creature that embodied spiritual filth. For Jewish listeners, the act carried a powerful message: darkness always gravitates toward what is already unclean. This wasn't a random choice, it was a deliberate exposure of the nature of evil. As the pigs rushed into the sea, the message became unmistakable: what is unclean cannot withstand the presence of divine purity. Even demons must retreat when confronted by the holiness of Christ. The presence of thousands of pigs near the Gerasenes suggests something significant. This was Gentile territory. Jews would never maintain such a large herd, so these pigs likely belonged to non-Jewish farmers whose livelihoods depended on them. This adds a surprising twist to the miracle. Jesus wasn't destroying Jewish property, he was working within a cultural borderland where beliefs, economies, and lifestyles clashed. The demons' request was strategic. Entering a massive herd belonging to Gentiles allowed them to cause chaos without violating the purity laws that govern Jewish life. But the economic loss was staggering, sparking anger and fear among the herdsmen. While the delivered man gained freedom, the community faced a sudden crisis they did not understand. In a moment, Jesus revealed the uncomfortable truth: sometimes spiritual transformation disrupts earthly systems. This miracle wasn't only about delivering a man, it exposed the cost of confronting darkness in a broken world. Beyond their physical role, pigs function as a dramatic literary symbol within the story. They represent chaos, impurity, and the destructive nature of evil when it gains control over anything living. The sight of thousands of unclean animals stampeding violently into the sea became a visual sermon, a living illustration of what demonic power seeks to do to every soul it touches. Their death wasn't just a consequence. It served as a bold metaphor. Darkness never quietly retreats, it exposes its true nature when expelled. By choosing pigs, the narrative paints evil with unmistakable clarity. It destroys, corrodes, and consumes. Even the setting, a steep cliff plunging into deep waters, heightens the tragedy and drama, helping the audience grasp the weight of spiritual warfare. Through the pigs, Scripture makes the invisible visible, showing that what happened inside the man was far more catastrophic than what happened on the hillside. When the pigs perished, two realities collided: earthly loss and heavenly victory. The herdsmen saw only devastation, their livelihood erased in moments, income gone, future uncertain. Yet the man who had suffered for years now sat in perfect peace, restored to dignity and humanity. This tension exposed a difficult truth: sometimes spiritual liberation comes with earthly discomfort. A life was saved, but a community's economy was shaken. Instead of rejoicing over the miracle, the townspeople feared what else Jesus' presence might challenge. It became clear that their concern for material security overshadowed their compassion for a man who had lived in torment. This moment forces every generation to ask, what do we value more, comfort or transformation? The cost of freedom is real, but the cost of remaining in darkness is far greater. In this miracle, heaven prioritized a soul over a herd, revealing God's heart in the clearest way. The moment the demons spoke, Their desperation was undeniable. These weren't creatures acting with confidence. They were spiritual rebels trembling before a power they could not resist. Their begging revealed something profound. Demons do not move freely in the presence of divine authority. They cannot choose their destiny, they negotiate in panic. Their plea showed they recognized Jesus not as a teacher, but as the judge who held absolute control over their fate. Every frantic word they uttered exposed their terror of being cast out and left without a host. They understood that once separated from a body, their influence weakened, their dominion collapsed, and their identity dissolved into helpless wandering. By begging, they admitted defeat. By pleading, they exposed their limits. And by falling before Jesus, they revealed to the watching world that even the darkest spiritual forces bow in fear when confronted with the one who commands eternity. The demons' fear wasn't random, it was rooted in ancient spiritual truth. They knew that Jesus possessed the authority to banish them into the abyss, a realm described as a place of confinement designed for rebellious spirits. To them, this wasn't just punishment, it was eternal imprisonment, the end of their influence on earth. Their panic was the panic of criminals seeing the judge arrive unexpectedly. They were terrified Jesus would seal their fate sooner than expected, stripping them of the freedom they had abused for generations. So they begged for an alternative, any alternative, even if it meant entering pigs. Their plea wasn't about survival, it was about delaying inevitable judgment. Their desperation revealed the spiritual reality many overlook. Evil may roam for a time, but it roams on borrowed permission. The demons' terror testified to the truth the villagers couldn't yet see. Jesus held the keys to every realm, including theirs. The demons' request to enter pigs was not random. It was a calculated move born out of fear and strategy. They knew Jesus would not allow them to re-enter another person, so they sought the next available vessel, animals already considered unclean and spiritually symbolic of impurity. Pigs offered them temporary refuge, a moment to escape the abyss they dreaded. But choosing pigs also allowed them to wreak chaos one final time, creating confusion, fear, and economic devastation in the community. Even in defeat, demons aimed to destroy something. Their choice showed their nature clearly. They prefer any host, human or animal, rather than face a future without influence. But what they didn't expect was that even the pigs could not contain their destructive force. Their violent rush into the sea exposed their true motive, not survival, but destruction. Their last act proved the same truth Jesus came to reveal: evil destroys anything it touches. The conversation between Jesus and the demons wasn't included in scripture for sensational effect, it served a deeper narrative purpose. By giving voice to the demons, the story makes the invisible war visible. It allows ordinary people to understand the tension between spiritual forces and divine authority. The dialogue pulls the reader into the drama, revealing the emotional weight of the moment, the terror of the demons, and the calm certainty of Jesus. Without the spoken exchange, the miracle would seem distant and abstract. But the words make it human, relatable, and unforgettable. The fear in the demon's voice exposes their vulnerability. The authority in Jesus' response reveals his unmatched power. And the desperate plea for the pigs shows that evil is neither mysterious nor unbeatable, it is defeated, cornered, and desperate before the Son of God. This dialogue transforms a miracle into a revelation, showing how heaven confronts darkness face to face. This moment on the shoreline was not just a miracle, it was a declaration. When the demons bowed before Jesus, they exposed a truth that human eyes could not see. Jesus' authority extended far beyond physical healing. He ruled the invisible world with the same ease he calmed storms and multiplied bread. No ritual, no chant, no force was needed. A single command from him shook an entire legion of spirits that had terrorized a man for years. The demons didn't argue, they surrendered. They didn't resist, they pleaded. Their trembling voices revealed the cosmic hierarchy. The forces that frightened humanity were terrified of him. Watching this unfold, the disciples learned something unforgettable: evil may roar loudly, but it trembles before the authority of Christ. This miracle wasn't just about one man's freedom. It was a public unveiling of Jesus as the supreme ruler of every realm, seen and unseen. Every miracle Jesus performed revealed a glimpse of God's kingdom pushing into a broken world, and this moment was one of the clearest. The man restored, the demons scattered, and the spiritual chains shattered, all pointed to a new power entering human history. This was more than an exorcism, it was a prophetic sign. Wherever Jesus went, oppression collapsed, fear lost its grip, and chaos retreated. The kingdom wasn't coming with armies or political revolution. It was arriving through liberation, compassion, and authority that restored dignity. In this single act, Jesus showed what God's reign looks like: darkness expelled, lives renewed, hope rekindled. The villagers didn't understand it, but heaven understood perfectly. The miracle declared that God's rule had stepped onto earth, not as a distant idea but as a living force transforming broken souls. This wasn't simply deliverance, it was the first crack of dawn announcing a greater day. Watching the pigs plunge into the sea, some may have thought evil had won a small victory. The demons escaped into the animals, chaos erupted, and property was destroyed. But those who looked deeper saw the opposite. The demons didn't triumph, they exposed their weakness. Their desperate rush to enter pigs proved they had no future without a host. Their violent end revealed the emptiness of their power. They were not conquering, they were collapsing. Jesus had cornered them and forced their defeat into the open where everyone could see it. The man was free, the demons were stripped. The community witnessed the truth: evil often thrashes loudest when it is losing. What looked like destruction was actually judgment. The pig's fate revealed the demon's destiny: ruin, not victory. Jesus didn't simply remove them, he showcased their end. Their last act became a prophecy of their final downfall. This miracle carries a pastoral tenderness that touches every wounded soul. Before the villagers saw a restored man, Jesus saw a suffering human being crying for freedom. He approached him not with fear, but with compassion, because deliverance begins with love. The man hadn't begged for forgiveness, yet Jesus offered restoration. He hadn't earned healing, yet Jesus gave him dignity. This is the heart of the gospel. God meets broken people in their most desperate condition and offers a new beginning. The man's transformation became a living testimony that no one is too damaged, too isolated, or too spiritually oppressed for God's mercy. As he sat calmly at Jesus' feet, he embodied what restoration looks like: mind renewed, identity returned, and future reopened. This story reminds every listener that deliverance is not only about removing darkness. It is about rebuilding a life with grace, hope, and a restored sense of belonging. When the gospel describes a man possessed by demons, ancient people understood it as spiritual torment. Today, psychologists might describe similar behavior using medical terms: dissociation, psychosis, trauma response, or severe mental instability. But the ancient world had no vocabulary for complex neurological or psychological disorders. They interpreted suffering through the lens of spiritual forces because that was the only framework they had. Modern perspectives don't cancel the spiritual reality, they simply offer another layer of understanding. What the villagers saw as demonic, today's experts might see as a mind overwhelmed by unbearable pain or unprocessed trauma. Yet the man's transformation after meeting Jesus cannot be easily explained by medical theories alone. Something happened that reached beyond behavior: his identity, awareness, and peace returned instantly. This shows that while science helps us understand symptoms, the gospel reveals a dimension of healing science cannot fully measure: the restoration of the soul. Even in clinical psychology, the pigs rushing into the sea remain a powerful symbol. They represent overwhelming emotional chaos, the kind that floods a person's life when inner struggles reach their breaking point. Many therapists describe destructive impulses as internal storms or mental stampedes, where pain, shame, and fear collide uncontrollably. The pig's violent descent mirrors what happens when a mind is consumed by despair. Yet the story's meaning is not hopeless. When the demons entered the pigs, they became visible, externalized, and separate from the man. This mirrors what therapy often aims to do: pull hidden suffering out of the shadows so healing can begin. The stampede shows how destructive forces behave when exposed. They rush toward ruin, unable to stand in the light. For many, this moment symbolizes the freeing truth that the chaos inside them is not who they are. Healing begins when the storm leaves the soul. While psychology can explain fear, trauma, or behavioral disorders, it cannot fully capture what happened on the shore that day. The man wasn't gradually treated, he was instantly restored. No therapy session, no medication, no long-term intervention could replicate such immediate transformation. Modern science offers valuable tools, but it operates within natural boundaries. Miracles operate outside them. When people reduce the story to mental illness alone, they miss the inspiring truth the villagers witnessed. A power stepped into human suffering and changed it without delay. The man didn't just calm down, he regained clarity, dignity, and peace that had been lost for years. His healing addressed every dimension: emotional, spiritual, and relational. Medical explanations help us empathize with his suffering, but they cannot explain his freedom. This miracle reminds us that while human knowledge is profound, divine intervention reaches where science cannot, the deepest places of the human spirit. A holistic understanding of the story recognizes that human suffering often involves all three dimensions: spirit, body, and society. The man's torment isolated him physically, shattered him emotionally, and cut him off socially. He couldn't live among people, couldn't control his actions, and couldn't express the pain consuming him. Jesus addressed all these layers at once. He confronted the spiritual darkness, healed the emotional trauma, and restored the man into community. True healing is never just one thing, it is the weaving back together of everything broken. Modern psychology approaches healing through the mind. Medicine seeks to heal the body. But this miracle reveals a divine pattern that embraces every part of a person's humanity. When Jesus restored the man, he gave him more than sanity, he gave him belonging, purpose, and hope. This integrative perspective reminds us that real transformation reshapes a life from the inside out. When the herd of pigs drowned, the shock rippled through the entire region. This wasn't a minor setback, it was a financial earthquake. Hundreds of families depended on those animals: farmers, traders, herdsmen, and laborers. Overnight, an entire economic system collapsed. Instead of celebrating the healed man, the villagers saw their livelihoods slipping beneath the waves. Fear mixed with anger as they wondered how they would survive the coming months. The miracle freed one man, but it shook the stability of many others. Their response wasn't heartless, it was human. People panic when survival feels threatened. Yet the contrast was striking. While heaven rejoiced over a restored life, the earth groaned under the weight of sudden loss. The miracle exposed a difficult truth: God's work sometimes disrupts human comfort. The community mourned the pigs, but they couldn't see that a soul, once shattered, had just been returned to life. The villagers didn't ask Jesus to leave because they hated him, they asked him to leave because they feared him. What they witnessed terrified them. A man they could not control was instantly healed, a legion of spirits obeyed a single command, and a massive herd obeyed forces they couldn't see. They realized they were standing before a power beyond their understanding, a power that could change everything without asking permission. They weren't prepared for such authority. Instead of embracing the miracle, they chose safety over revelation. Expelling Jesus became a way to regain control of their world, to push away the unfamiliar, to restore predictability. They feared what his presence might cost next. Their reaction shows how humanity often prefers the discomfort it understands over the transformation it doesn't. Jesus brought freedom, but the village chose familiarity. They sent away the very one who had just defeated their greatest fear. After years of torment, the healed man longed to follow Jesus, but Jesus gave him a different calling: go home and tell them what God has done for you. His story carried more power than any sermon. The people who once feared him would now hear a living testimony of mercy, authority, and redemption. His transformation became the gospel's first seed planted in Gentile soil. He wasn't trained, polished, or educated, yet he carried something greater: a life changed beyond explanation. Every scar on his body became a reminder of God's intervention. His voice, once filled with agony, now carried hope into homes that had only known fear. Jesus entrusted him with a mission that mattered: to show his community that the power which terrified them was the same power that restored him. His testimony became a bridge between fear and faith, turning one miracle into a lifelong ministry. The miracle forced a difficult question onto the community: whose well-being matters more, the individual or the group? The healed man gained everything: sanity, dignity, purpose, a future. But the village lost something valuable: their economic security. In their eyes, one man's freedom had cost too much. They couldn't understand why Jesus would allow such a sacrifice. Yet the miracle revealed God's priorities. Heaven places immeasurable value on a single human soul. The community saw the pigs, Jesus saw the man. Their fear exposed a deeper struggle. People often measure God's work through material loss, not spiritual gain. But Jesus showed that true healing isn't about economic convenience. It's about restoring what darkness tried to destroy. The village mourned the herd, but Jesus rejoiced over a redeemed life. This moment challenges every generation. Do we value comfort more than compassion? Or are we willing to celebrate freedom, even when it costs something? In the early centuries of Christianity, church fathers saw this miracle as a window into the unseen battle between divine order and chaotic evil. To them, the possessed man symbolized humanity bound by sin, while the pigs represented the destructive path all evil ultimately follows. Medieval teachers expanded these ideas, turning the story into a moral mirror for society. They preached that Jesus' authority over the demons revealed his authority over every hidden struggle in the human heart. The pig's violent plunge became a warning about the fate of those who allow darkness to rule their lives. At the same time, the man's restoration offered hope, proof that no soul is beyond redemption. These early interpretations weren't just theological, they were pastoral. They helped everyday believers understand that the same Jesus who delivered the man stands ready to deliver anyone crushed by spiritual, emotional, or moral bondage. When the Reformation swept across Europe, this story took on new meaning. Preachers emphasized the absolute authority of Christ over every form of spiritual deception. They saw the demon's confession, Jesus, Son of the Most High God, as evidence that truth stands firm even when darkness trembles. In later centuries, the story became a powerful message about personal transformation. Evangelists use it to show that Jesus doesn't just break chains. He restores identity, dignity, and purpose. Modern preaching continues this pattern, often focusing on mental oppression, emotional captivity, and the hidden wounds people carry. The story reminds listeners that spiritual battles are real, but victory is closer than they think. Whether spoken from a pulpit, shared on radio, or retold in testimony, the message remains timeless. No matter how deep the darkness, the light of Christ is deeper still. Freedom is possible because authority belongs to Him alone. Artists across centuries have been captivated by this dramatic moment. Painters used bold strokes to show the contrast between Jesus' calm authority and the explosive chaos of the pig's descent. Writers portrayed the possessed man as a tragic figure caught between terror and hope, turning his transformation into a symbol of human rebirth. In film, the scene is often depicted with thunderous sound, swirling motion, and overwhelming emotion, helping viewers feel the intensity of the spiritual clash. The story's imagery remains unforgettable. A tormented soul set free, invisible powers exposed, a hillside erupting with uncontrollable force. Artists use these elements to explore themes of inner conflict, redemption, and the cost of freedom. Whether in a Renaissance canvas or a modern documentary, the miracle continues to inspire because it captures a universal truth: the moment when chaos breaks and healing begins. It is the story of deliverance told through unforgettable imagery. Preachers and teachers often turn to this miracle because it speaks to the deepest struggles people face: fear, oppression, hopelessness, and the longing for restoration. Sermons built around this passage typically highlight four themes: the depth of human suffering, the destructive nature of evil, the unmatched authority of Jesus, and the beauty of restored identity. Teachers use the story to encourage listeners who feel overwhelmed by life's pressures, reminding them that freedom is possible even when bondage feels permanent. The healed man becomes a model of transformation, showing that God doesn't just repair a life, He gives it purpose. This passage also challenges congregations to value people more than possessions, compassion more than convenience. It urges believers to welcome the miraculous even when it disrupts the familiar. Whether used in Bible study, counseling, or preaching, the story offers a powerful message: no one is too broken for God to restore. Today, deliverance ministries often draw inspiration from this story, but they also face serious challenges. Many people seek help because they feel trapped by fear, addiction, or emotional torment. Some ministries approach deliverance with compassion and discipline, recognizing the spiritual and psychological complexity of human suffering. But others misuse spiritual authority, causing harm instead of healing. This miracle reminds modern believers that true deliverance isn't loud or theatrical, it's compassionate, wise, and centered on restoring dignity. Jesus didn't torture the man, shame him, or make a spectacle out of his struggle. He brought peace. Real deliverance aligns with His character: gentle toward the suffering, firm against the darkness. Safeguards are essential: accountability, pastoral training, emotional understanding, and respect for mental health professionals. The story teaches that deliverance is holy work, not entertainment. When done rightly, it brings freedom. When abused, it distorts the very message Jesus came to reveal. Across cultures and religions, people interpret spiritual oppression differently. Yet many share similar stories of conflict between good and evil. This miracle offers a bridge for interfaith conversation, not to dilute beliefs, but to deepen understanding. In some traditions, spirits are seen as ancestors, in others as symbolic forces, and in others as literal beings. Despite these differences, the universal theme remains: humans long for liberation from whatever binds them. Jesus' confrontation with the demon speaks across cultures because it addresses a human truth people everywhere face: unseen struggles. His compassion toward the tormented man offers a model for how religious communities can respond to suffering, with empathy, wisdom, and humility. The story encourages dialogue rather than division, reminding believers that spiritual healing is a global need. While interpretations differ, the core message stands firm: hope is possible, and compassion must guide every spiritual conversation. The miracle forces modern readers to wrestle with a hard ethical question: how should society balance the value of property with the worth of a human life? The villagers saw destroyed livestock; Jesus saw a redeemed soul. In a world driven by profit, productivity, and possession, this story challenges us to reconsider what truly matters. It reveals how easily people overlook the suffering of the vulnerable when material loss is involved. Jesus intentionally demonstrated that one restored human being carries greater value than any economic system. This message is just as relevant today, whether dealing with homelessness, mental illness, or addiction. How often do we prioritize comfort, convenience, or financial security over compassion? This miracle calls us to reflect on our choices. It urges us to protect the vulnerable, challenge unjust systems, and remember that every person, no matter how broken, holds immeasurable worth in the eyes of God. The story ends not with the pigs, but with the restored man standing as living proof of God's power. The pig's dramatic plunge highlights the destructive nature of evil, but the man's transformation highlights the healing nature of grace. Together, they reveal a timeless truth: darkness destroys, but Jesus restores. The miracle shows that no matter how deep the bondage, hope is never out of reach. It reminds us that spiritual battles are real, but so is divine compassion. The healed man becomes our final guide: once isolated, now embraced; once broken, now whole. His life teaches that God values people over possessions, souls over systems, and freedom over fear. As we reflect on this story, we are invited to choose restoration, to welcome the power that changes lives, and to share this message with others. What Jesus did for him, he can still do today. This story leaves us with a truth too powerful to ignore: no darkness is too strong, no chain too old, and no torment too deep for Jesus to break. The man who once lived among the tombs walked home restored, proving that God's love reaches into the places we fear most. The demon's panic revealed their weakness. The pig's plunge exposed evil's true nature, but the man's transformation revealed God's heart. He values every soul more than anything we could lose. This miracle is not ancient history, it is a message for today. Freedom is real, restoration is possible, and hope is still greater than fear. If this journey opened your eyes, touched your heart, or deepened your faith, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share it with someone who needs to know that deliverance is still possible.